Hello everyone, I'm Rebecca Hess. I'm with REMAX Capital Properties.
And I'm Brenton Leavitt, REMAX Capital Properties.
We are here today to talk dirty to you, I guess, but we're talking about gardens and landscaping, so don't get too excited about that.
And curb appeal.
And curb appeal, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, we thought we'd kind of tackle today some thoughts on curb appeal, what that has to do with real estate and the resale on homes, and then Brent's got a definite green thumb and knows a lot about what can and can't grow here, so he'll be a world of knowledge for us. But you definitely have more experience than I do on this. I do not garden at all.
Well, it's kind of fun. I mean, with your home or any business or anything else, we've got an opportunity to grow a plethora of different plants. And depending on, north side, east side, west side, south side, we get all kinds of different climates and microclimates, and with fences and other trees.
Yeah.
And so, whether it's flowers or...
Yeah. I'm surprised that you said we have a lot that we can grow here, because I'm under the impression we don't grow much here.
Oh, well...
No? Yes?
Laramie struggles a little bit more than we do. But we do
really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Well, I remember when I came to Cheyenne the first time, it was over 20 years ago, when I drove into town and realized there was not very many trees and everything. I thought, what is happening here? But I do know it's possible. I do know it's possible. I just am not very aware of what we can do here.
Well, and it depends on, let's say you want to have something on the front and you're south facing. So all the roses and, tulips and anything that takes a lot of sun.
Yeah.
Well, your bulbs, they'll thrive.
Yeah.
And then like on your shady sides, hostas do good, and the stilbees and all that stuff.
See, you might as well be speaking Greek, because I have no idea what any of those are. But I bet they're beautiful. See? What I can talk to, though, is how curb appeal, how landscaping actually helps on the resale value of your home, especially as we're going into the spring here in the summer. And Cheyenne is just absolutely beautiful here, I think, during the summer and spring and into the fall and stuff, because we do start to see some green and things start to grow. But I know as a real estate agent, when I drive up to a house, that first thing you see really kind of affects how you view the whole house.
It sure does.
So
I mean, driving up and seeing a crabapple in bloom, pinks and reds, whites, or the Canada red cherries, the smells are over the top. And so spring, and our tree canopy in Cheyenne is just loaded with flowers and good fragrance.
They smell good.
The lilacs are great.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can put them out there and you can use them as hedges, cotoneasters and lilacs.
Yeah. So I have a funny story about lilacs, just really quick, because I'm going to get them in a transaction right now about lilacs, and they happen to be on the opposite side of our property line, and they're dead. And the people I have buying the property really want those removed, but they're not on our property, on the property we're selling. So we're having a little bit of a debate right now on what we can and can't do with somebody else's lilacs that are dead lilacs that are sitting there, but totally off subject, but it's,
I saw it in my alley, and my two neighbors, and they're like, they're almost dead, and what are you going to do about them?
Yeah. It's interesting. Well, when we talk about landscaping and reselling a house, there are some reports I read that said high quality landscaping can boost a home's value by 15 to 20%.
Oh, I believe that.
Yeah, and I believe that too. I do think it affects how you drive up to a home and what you see. So I thought maybe we'd talk about what would be the most financially rewarding landscaping projects you would do. What do you think, in your opinion, when you're looking at landscaping? What sticks out to you?
Well, grass is always nice, but since we don't have a lot of water, that might not, people are kind of going towards rock, which is another maintenance nightmare in itself.
With rocks?
Yeah. Because they sit there and hold dirt and all the weed seeds and look terrible.
So you still have stuff growing out of them and things like that you have to take care of. Gotcha.
You're still having to do that.
Yeah.
But, a beautiful centerpiece of a tree that's going to come and, give us something to look at and eventually give us shade.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'll bring a lot, in my opinion. You see a big, beautiful tree sitting there when you drive up to a place, and
Yeah, it just catches you, doesn't it? Yeah, I agree. On our old house that we lived in, we had a beautiful, and I don't even know what it's called, but it was gorgeous. And the only complaint we had is it came up and kind of hung over our driveway, and then we would get all the stuff falling onto our cars. But it was beautiful. So for those few weeks that everything was dropping, that was a pain. But the tree was gorgeous, and we did love it. So.
Yeah, so cottonwoods will drip like a sugar onto your cars, and they're not fun to park under. Yeah. And then in the spring, the old, I'll forget the name now, but the aspens and the cottonwoods all put out a...
Yeah.
I forgot the word.
Yeah, I know. My husband was not happy every time he'd walk out there and our car was covered and stuff. But the tree was gorgeous and we loved it.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I thought about was doing outdoor living areas. Because I think for me as a seller or a buyer, when I walk into a home and having that extra space in an outdoor living area is kind of awesome. And I would consider that landscaping. I know it's not trees and bushes necessarily, but outdoor living areas like kitchens or patios or...
it can be.
Yeah, I guess it can be, depending what you put into it, right?
So we can use vining plants like clematis. We can use hops, all kinds of different vining plants to come in and put a nice canopy on there. They can grow over a pergola, and they can be just enchanting. And then putting different flowers right around, you can set it up for hummingbirds to come in and talk to you. And in my yard, I put Monardas, which is a bee balm, and I can sit on my porch and the hummingbirds will just come right up the steps and just sit there and watch you.
That's awesome.
So, if you know what you're trying to do.
Yeah, that's
what you're growing.
If you know what you're doing, that's the problem I have. So I have to look for expertise in these areas because I don't do landscaping. In fact, when we bought our house, how many years ago? It wasn't until we'd been living there about 5 years we looked at our HOA, our covenants, and realized we were supposed to have planted trees and never did. So we hurried and got that done. But that's something to look out for when you're a buyer, looking at different areas you might want to be living, new builds and these areas that have covenants and HOAs, they do have some requirements for landscaping.
They do.
Yeah.
And we have some good resources here too. The Laramie County Conservation District has their plant sale every winter. And you can buy all the seedlings and get help planting them and have help putting up the drip lines.
Yeah, I understand they come out and actually do the whole process with you, right? It's pretty, for someone like me, that'd be great. They could come in and help.
It does. It is awesome. Great. And, you can have great results. In 10 years, you can see some pretty dramatic improvements. Obviously, you got to put some water to it and you got to tend it. You just can't let it sit there. But it can be... my dad went out there and I don't know, in 10 years they put the water to it, but in 10 years you're sitting there like, this is 30 years worth of tree growth. Right, really? But the right plants are out there.
If you have the right ones, Yeah,
that's
cool.
Like the ponderosa pines and the os pines, they'll grow quick and they put out a lot of foliage to block some wind, and of course cottonwoods grow hard and fast.
Yeah, so you get some pretty good growth in a shorter amount of time, depending on what you plant. Yeah, interesting. The other thing I think, too, when we're talking about financially rewarding is probably low maintenance. Right now we're getting our house ready to put on market, and we don't have landscaping. Like I said, we put in our 5 trees, but we haven't done much else. Our 5 trees and our chicken coop. I don't think chickens count as landscaping, but they're cute back there.
Well, they get the bugs.
Right. So we just this last week finally went in and put some road base down on our driveway and area to kind of make it look a little bit cleaner and nicer. Sure. So we've done very minimal things for landscaping, but I know there are some people out there like yourself that, oh man, there's some amazing yards here in Cheyenne.
Yeah, some of the low maintenance stuff is... Just say you have a spot that's 4 feet wide and it goes up the east side of your house. You can plant it so that, the spring when the snow's still on the ground, you can get them to flower. And then they'll just come with the summer up and they'll just step up like that.
Oh, very cool.
So the smells are great and the picture's great and the soil's retained. And
so some planning ahead, you can get some great results with that.
Right.
Probably.
And it's basically, there's no maintenance. With bulbs, which I'm talking about right there.
Yeah. So as someone who's probably getting ready to list their house or thinking about that, Where would you start? Like if it's someone like me, what would you advise them to do? And when they don't have much landscaping, maybe don't have a huge budget to put in a lot of landscaping, where would you tell them to start to try and get that curb appeal for people who are going to be coming up to see their house?
If there's absolutely none, I mean, something small by the front porch, maybe, a couple flowers, tall grasses or something like that. Even a small dwarf lilac.
Just a little bit of greenery.
Just something right there at the front porch. And then it's not so much landscape in that case, but if you've got overgrown trees, they're sitting there rubbing on the shingles or damaging the fascia or something like this. It's
Tackle those.
Get that done quick.
Yeah, that's good advice. We do see that a lot too.
And fruit trees and roses and that kind of stuff, they're in basically the same family. You don't want to prune them in the summer because you can introduce bacterium like fire blight and stuff like this. So, you do your plants a lot of injustice. And if you do it in the basically winter, late fall, winter, you don't have that problem.
Okay. I was thinking too, of all the houses we drive up, probably the easiest thing to do would be to clean up.
Well, yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm thinking about our yard now, and it's not, we don't have a ton of stuff out there, but there are some piles of wood or things like that. And so probably for us would be the first thing we would tackle is cleaning it up, just getting things cleaned up.
Well, you don't want to pull up and see a bunch of weeds.
No.
Thistle and all that kind of stuff, tumbleweeds.
Yeah, for sure.
Get all that out of your fences and in the corners or piles of leaves or.
Yeah, well, and that's the first thing people see, so it really does affect how they're going to view the whole house going into it. If and for some of us who don't enjoy that, you just have to get in there and do it, right? I know. And my husband and I, we kind of butt heads on that. He's got a lot more energy than I do, and we might need to spend a Saturday just getting it all ready to go. But yeah, I think cleanup is a big deal. We don't want the house itself. I know the exterior is not considered landscaping, but that kind of goes with it. If you've got the yard cleaned up, but then you've got areas in the house that need painting, probably tackle those kind of things.
The exterior, if you've got, like I touched on, the fascia getting touched with the trees, it's scraping the paint off, but all the edges where you can get water intrusion, swells, those less than stellar building materials that people use, and if they don't get a good coat of paint on them, they just sit there and suck moisture in and fall apart.
Yeah.
And
our
it's
climate,
the first thing you see.
Yeah, it is the first thing you see. And with our climate, it's going to be different than somewhere else. So we really have to, I guess, do a little investigating and research into what we would need to do here. Because it's so dry, but then we have the wind and the weather and stuff like that. So just some investigation on that. Low maintenance, another thing I thought of was sprinkler systems. And I know that can be kind of a chunk of money at the beginning, but I feel like a sprinkler system is just a really good investment. That's my opinion, and I don't do sprinkler systems, and so I would have to hire somebody out to do that, but I think it's worth the money to do. You sprinklers, I assume?
I like to sit there and water the plants.
Are you one of those guys? You stand out there with the hose?
I want to see it grow every day.
Why is that not surprising me? I can see that.
But the grass, a great sprinkler system, it cuts down and you can time it to
get it set and
get the moisture on there when it's not in the middle of the day.
Yeah,
so
sprinkler
it does
system.
what it needs to do. But they need to be maintained.
They do need to be maintained. Blown out before the winter comes, because otherwise you get leaks and it's kind of a disaster. Hardscaping, so when we're talking about sidewalks or patios or decks, those also need to be maintained.
They do.
Yeah,
Got to keep the paint on them, or the oils in them, or the weeds out of the cracks.
Yeah, clean up those.
Broken edges.
Yeah, I was thinking about living areas, things that would offer privacy. And some of my favorite yards I've ever walked into have like the pergola or the covered patios, and it just is so nice, even with the wind, to be able to kind of sit in that safe space, I guess, and be out in the evenings in the spring and the summer and the fall. And so I was thinking, something shady tree, something that gives you a little bit of privacy is a good idea too.
Yeah. So the east side at night doesn't get the sun from the west, so it's in the shade. And if you had a pergola up there, and say you wanted to grow some hops, and they'll come and drape across it, and they'll give you even more shade. And then it, because of the moisture in the plant, it gives you almost like misting.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty awesome.
Pretty.
Smells good.
It smells good. Fire pits are a big deal here. I think most of, we have a fire pit. I think most of my friends have fire pits. I think that's something that we enjoy during the summer. And some of them are beautiful. You can go onto Pinterest or Google or call your landscaper or whatever. And there's some really beautiful ways to do a fire pit, which would be fun too.
Yeah. You don't have to just go to the beach.
No, you can do it here. Yeah, as long as the wind's not blowing too hard. We don't want any of those fires happening again. So for me, because I don't have any knowledge or real experience with gardening or anything like that, probably the first thing I would do is talk to maybe my neighbors and see what they're doing or who they're working with. As a real estate agent, I know that I have a lot of really great clients and friends that are landscapers and do amazing work. So I can often refer that out to people.
No, that's great. Because there is some of the projects you don't want to tackle by yourself.
No.
Especially if you're doing a retaining wall or something like that.
Absolutely. Get somebody who knows what they're doing. Well, and I really do think that the return on investment that you put into your landscaping, you're going to get back. Especially here, maybe, and I may be speaking out of turn because I don't sell anywhere else than Wyoming, right? But I think here, because it is such a hard climate sometimes to grow things, if somebody has put that kind of effort into it, whether they're hiring a landscaper or they're doing it themselves, that to me says a lot about the house.
It does.
Yeah.
You know, when you come up and you see a meticulously
Yeah.
groomed lawn and flower beds, you know, the home is going to mirror that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and as a buyer of a house, if I come up and see that they've put that kind of work into the yard, that is less that I have to think about. I just need to go on and maintain it from here instead of having to try and think about it. So I do really think in every market, but especially here, landscaping is really a great return on investment, I think.
It's a big deal. That's why you see everybody, you know, wanting to come into the avenues or some of the older homes. And, you know, the newer subdivisions, it takes a while to get all that stuff established. Even if we're putting sod down, I mean, it takes a little bit of time.
It does. It takes years. And those neighborhoods are highly desirable, and I think that has a lot to do with it, with those mature trees and how beautiful it is, the greenery. I think also some things to think about that I have, and I'm sure you have dealt with in your experience, is sometimes landscaping can cause problems too. Like you said about on the trees with the roof, you know, when trees are hitting the roof. So that's something to think about, is keeping things trimmed and maintained.
Trimmed and maintained, but if you plant around the foundation and you don't have the right drainage, you can also introduce water to the basement. Yeah. Which wouldn't be a good thing.
No.
So
and the cost for that is gonna be
it's gonna be like, oh
that's gonna hurt a little bit.
I didn't do that right. My goodness.
Yeah. Well, and into sewer lines too. So a lot of those places in town and the avenues that have all those gorgeous trees, we do find a lot of sewer issues with that because those roots have come into those old clay sewer lines, sewer pipes, and so that's something as an agent we always keep in mind when we're working with buyers and sellers in those areas.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So just things to keep in mind. But I think overall for landscaping, I definitely think it's worth it, and I do know, because I see so many houses, and I'm sure you see so many houses. The ones that really stand out to me are those ones that you feel like you're kind of walking into your own little oasis, I guess. And I don't think it necessarily means you have to put a ton of work into it, but some work.
You just got to take care of it. We just showed a home, and we walk up, drive up, and the whole front yard is dirt and weeds and dogs. Yeah. And so the first thing, well, they need to give us a grass allowance. Yeah. Well, we're not going to get, you know, half an acre of grass to grow in 15 days. So, you know, kind of, it impacts the sale.
Yeah, it does. And it sets the tone as they walk into the house. They've already got that in mind. So some cleanup would have been great. Some work prior to having the house listed would have been great.
Well, then you walk up and you're sitting there like, okay, great. So you walk to the front door, and here's the brick mold and all the window casing and stuff like that. And it's all deteriorated paint, chipping, and, you know, so you're like, oh, well, great, I got to tackle that. Yeah. And then the same one, you know, there's these great big trees that are growing over the house. And it's like it's a Chinese elm, and they're known to snap in the wind. Which
you don't want over top of your house.
No. So I mean, they're going to have to be trimmed back and stuff like that. So it's a big deal.
It is. Well, I know in the city too, we own a house downtown, and my son has a house downtown, and I know both of us, the city has reached out to us and said that tree needs to go when they find a dead tree. And so that's an expense you may have to incur down the road. is some of these old trees that have been there for a long, long time, you're going to have to pay to have them removed.
The 100-year cottonwoods, they've been working on those, they being the city forestry department. And yeah, they've been cutting some down and asking us as property owners right there to take and foot the bill.
Yeah, to take care of
when
it.
it hangs over your main thoroughfare, say Randall Avenue, you know, then you've got to set up traffic.
Yeah, take care of all that. Yeah.
So it's another expense it could be, but the trade-off at the end is, my goodness, the shade and the...
I know. So the trees are worth it, I think. So. And
our state capitol's got a phenomenal bunch of trees down there, and they've got them labeled. So if you want to, you're sitting here thinking about a certain tree, and like a bur oak is a gorgeous tree. It's slow growing, it's hardwood, and it gets acorns and all these kinds of great things. But there's an example. Same thing with Lions Park, and they've got it labeled. You go see it. Or if you want to go see a willow that's fast growing, or a cottonwood, both places, and those pine trees and spruces are all down there too to check out.
Yeah, I love that you know all of this. I just think it looks pretty. That's how I feel about it.
It does look pretty. There's no doubt about it.
So I think for my takeaway today, I guess would be landscaping's worth it. It really is worth it. I think you're going to get the return on investment on landscaping. You're going to probably sell your home faster. As a buyer, that's something you don't have to deal with. You just need to maintain afterwards. So my feeling is landscaping is absolutely worth it. And I think if you don't have the experience like someone yourself who could go in and do your own thing, we have amazing landscapers here in town who do phenomenal work and are very familiar with what we have and what we have not the ability to do here with our climate. So
we do. We have some great ones. And if you're out there and you're scraping a lot and sod isn't going to be the answer in our granitic soils. And so there's places like Buffalo Seed where you can buy all this native grass seed. So your pubescent wheats and intermediate wheats and blue stem wheats and buffalo grass and all this stuff.
So there's options.
To keep your lot where it'll do best in our climate.
Absolutely. Well, if you have any suggestions for us or any ideas or comments about landscaping or want any referrals or anything like that on great landscapers in town, let us know. Or Brent can tell you. That's great. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for joining us. Well, that's great.
Okay.